Hello, everyone. Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the Author's Corner, Meet the Author, and we have a wonderful author with us today, and I'm so glad that you guys are able to join us. I know this is one of your favorite shows. We get a lot of listeners and re-listeners to the show, so I want to thank you all for joining us each and every time. Those of you that don't know me, I am Cece Shatz. I'm the Doyenne of relationship building. What I do is help connect you with awesome people, taking you to the next level, to the next vibration of your life. And that's what it's all about, really living the life of your choice. And so we are going to help you with that right here on our WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. And our website is right here, goingsolomedia.com. All of our wonderful shows are on there, along with our terrific hosts. Our guests are on there. So please make sure you check out the station. Give us a shout out if you would, please. Our email is goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you what you would like to listen to, and we'll make sure that we bring that for you. So we have a wonderful guest here today. We're going to bring him forward. He's a terrific author. Let's bring him up right here. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me.
It is great having you. We have Mike Anthony here. He has written a wonderful book, and it's called How My Father Died, Then Told Me He Didn't. So this new book is really going to bring you guys hope and evidence that there's afterlife. So I thought this was really cool. And then I guess the book has gone on to be featured as a Netflix series. So Surviving Death. So woo! Good for you.
It's been quite a journey, I'll say that.
Yeah, that is, I mean, it is really truly awesome. Not only to write a really terrific book that really does help people, that not only helps them, but it inspires them to have comfort to, because we're all going to be there eventually. We're all going to pass, or, if we have family members that are passing, it's difficult for us to deal with. So
Yeah.
it's a truly great book to be able to touch lives. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that when all of it started to happen, it was so wondrous and it changed my life so much that it actually felt unfair to not be sharing the story with people. And I was talking about it with everyone that I met, and thought, I might as well put this out there as far as possible. And that's how the book came to be.
Yeah, that's great. Well, tell us a little bit about your journey. Now, I know that you are an actor, a bartender, right, and
Yeah.
now a terrific author. So, tell us a little bit about your journey. How, number one, how this happened to you, and what inspired you to go ahead and write the book.
Yeah, very strange life I'm leading. A bartender actor by day, a researcher into the possibility of life after death by night. Very disparate paths, it might look like. I initially moved to New York City to become an actor. That's what I'd gone for, and then I got a job bartending at a Broadway theater, that I thought I'd only have for a little while until my acting career really hit its stride. And then here I am 15 years later, still behind that bar, and also acting from time to time. And then in 2011, my dad suddenly, shockingly died. It came completely out of the blue as far as our perspective. We had no idea there was anything wrong with him. He was only 60 years old, and he was a very young 60. We thought that he had the best shot to live into old age out of anyone in my family. So I was bartending one night at a show on Broadway when I got the phone call from my sister, screaming, wailing, he's gone, he's gone, he's gone. And that's how I found out that my dad had passed. And for us, it was just a shattering event. It was one of those life moments that really change everything about how the universe feels to you. It's like my life had been going a certain way up until that moment. And then it was like I was living in a whole different movie. It was like the whole genre of my life had become this terrifying film.
Right. Well, when I was looking at your information, you had said that that you were bartending, of course, and then you got the word, and then you continued on working.
Yeah.
But it was almost like you were in, and I've experienced this before, and I'm sure many have, where you complete the task that you're doing, but you're feeling like you're in slow motion, right? You're just
Yeah.
kind of doing what you need to do, but your mind, your spirit, everything is just, it's out of sync, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I realize now that I was in shock, what a psychiatrist would call shock. Yeah, I have this very bizarre memory. Like I said, it was this completely shattering thing to hear. And then you know how it is on Broadway, intermission happens and suddenly you're descended upon by 500 people who are all excited about the first act that they just saw and they want to get their drinks. And I have this very clear memory of making a rum and Coke for a woman and saying, how's the show? Are you enjoying the show? Just like it was any normal day. Yeah, very. It was a very bizarre. I think, like you said, it's something of a survival mechanism. I'm sure the brain just goes into a certain sort of default mode to get you through.
Right. Yeah. And be able to, sometimes I wonder if it's better when you receive something like that, that's really difficult for you, that's news, whatever the news is, but it's difficult for you, but you receive that and you kind of, if you're able to kind of focus on something else, even though you feel numb,
Mm-hmm.
you know that it's happening and you can't really kind of control it. But if you can kind of put your mind somewhere else into something physical that you can actually divert to, it kind of, I don't know if it would help you at all, probably not, but at least it keeps you centered to be able to keep moving forward into completing what it is that you have to complete. Because when we get news like that, we can't just say, okay, everything shuts down. Sometimes we have to continue on.
Yeah, yeah. Things can be too much for the brain, to take at one time. Can just be too much, and so the brain has ways of dealing with that stuff. And one of the ways is like you said, to focus on something menial, perhaps. Like I remember very clearly counting out the money for the bar time, the bar manager. So I was counting out the money at the end of the shift and really focusing on all of that because it was just keeping the rest of the world out. I was keeping that panic at bay. And then later on that night, I had a full-blown panic attack, my first panic attack of my life, as I was walking to the train to my family lives in Connecticut. So my brain was able to keep it at bay for a while, and then the news broke through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally get that. So tell us a little bit about then. From then, what did you do? I mean, how? Because it seems like I don't want to give the book away, so I don't know how we can talk about this without giving the book away. People don't. We want them to buy the book, right? So we don't want to give them all the goods to it, but I think it's because we are, so many of us, including myself, are taking care of parents that are older. We have older parents in our lives, even my own kids, I'm getting older. And so, they're going to have to deal with this. This is an issue. This is a topic that we have to all deal with, right? And so
Yeah.
can you give us a little bit of advice or a little bit of your journey on how you were able to kind of move into trying to make some sort of sort this out in your head somehow?
Yeah. I mean, death is a thing that in our society we kind of put away as much as possible, right? We kind of keep it as far away from us as we can. I remember being a real young kid. My grandfather died, and I must have been 4 or 5 or something, and that was my first brush with death, and the realization that people die, because at 5 years old I was having such a wonderful life. Everything is amazing when you're 5, right? And the idea that was going to end one day really bothered me, and the idea that my mom and my dad were not always going to be with me, and watching my dad struggle with the loss of his dad even at 5 years old, that was hard. And I think that's where I started, and a lot of us start to put death away in a box as much as we can. In other cultures and in times past, death was kept much more a part of life. It wasn't shielded away from us as much. If you go back, especially to, for instance, the Egyptian culture, the idea of death and what happens after death was a very big part of life. It was all sort of mixed together as one thing. Whereas in our society, there's life and then there's death that we hide away in hospitals a lot. So when it hits us in our lives, it's often something we're not at all prepared for. right? It's no matter how much we think we might be, when we're suddenly faced with it in that visceral way, we're often not prepared for it. And I definitely wasn't. Now, before I became an actor, I had initially planned on being a science teacher. I went to college to study science, and I have always, my whole life, loved science. And the mainstream scientific paradigm says that there is no such thing as life after death, right? According to the mainstream paradigm, what we think of as being alive and what we think of as self is simply an illusion created by chemical reactions happening in the brain. And that when that brain stops getting oxygen and it goes offline, the self also goes away forever, period. And all of my science teachers, all of my biology teachers were ringing in my ears after my dad died. And I was being crushed by the thought that, because my dad was an amazing man, an amazingly loving man. And it was killing me, the idea that everything that he ever was could suddenly disappear. And if that was true, I was having a real hard time figuring out what the point to anything could be if someone that amazing could just be gone forever. And then something happened in our lives that completely altered the path of my life and completely altered my sense of what reality is. And it started with mediumship. Now, of course, mediumship is the claim that some people have the ability to communicate with our deceased loved ones in some way. And I'd been familiar with that from like John Edward, Crossing Over, the television show, and The Long Island Medium is a popular one that's still on now. But that was really all that I knew about it. And mediumship is a thing that most people seek out, right? If you're grieving, and people will seek out a medium. In our case, it crashed into our lives. The story in a nutshell, which I describe clearly in the book, is that a complete stranger, a woman that we had never met, that my dad had never met, who is a medium, got in touch with my family saying that my father was desperate to get a message to us that he had survived the death of his body and that he was okay. This call came into my mom's house one night with this message, this apparent message from my father. And that's how it started. And, the scientific part of my brain, the skeptical part of my brain, couldn't let it go at that. I was going to need to really investigate this. And that kicked off a years-long investigation into mediumship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that very fascinating. We have a host here on our show, Janet M. Reynolds, and she's a medium, and I will share with you that when I first met her, I didn't really believe what she was going to do. Okay, I think like, yeah, right, okay, and so we were together. And she said that one of my family members was, and we're just hanging, like girlfriends or just talking as girls. And so she said that one of my family members was with her. And then she says to me, and her voice changes because she's like, I guess she has a spirit guide, and her voice and her whole look changes.
Uh-huh.
And so she was into this, and I'm thinking, oh wow, what's going on? And so and she knows I've told her this. And so so what she said to me is that my mother was there. And of course I didn't believe a thing she was saying to me, right? Then she went on to say to me, well, your mother says you're not believing, so your mother says this will convince you that she is the reason you do not like the color red. And now nobody knows that but my mom and I. I hate the color red. Well, I don't hate it, but I don't really like the color red. And the reason being is my mother decorated our entire house with red. I came home from school one day and the carpeting was red, all the drapes were red, everything was red. And I just like, oh my God. I went into my room. I said, I'm changing my room. I can't stand this, this color red everywhere. And so that's true. And no one knew that. So my mother had to be there. So yeah, it's amazing. It's fascinating. So Janet and I got to be very good friends. She's on the station now, and I love her dearly. But So you have to
Yeah.
have an experience, I think, like that, you know?
Yeah, that's what happened with us. After this medium called our house, then my sister hired a woman who called herself a professional evidential medium, and she came to our house, and that experience changed our lives because the same sort of information that you just talked about came through in ways that she was saying, giving us specifics that there were simply no way I could fathom she could know. Things that were not published on the internet anywhere, because she had our name and our phone number and everything. So I'm thinking, well, with that information, you can gather all kinds of stuff about a person. But the kinds of information she was giving was stuff like you just said, stuff that's not published anywhere. And then except for now, right. Yeah, it's harder for me to find a good medium nowadays. Now that my story's out there, but after that, I about a year after that experience, I called that medium back and I said, "Listen, I have not been able to stop thinking about this." And by that point, I was telling my story to people, and it was bringing comfort to them. And at that point, it became a real sort of I felt a real responsibility to make sure that I was telling the truth, to make sure that what I was telling people happened really is what happened, and that I wasn't duped in some way. And that's basically what I said to this woman. I'm like, I need to make sure that this is real. I'd like to make a documentary where I sit you in front of a camera, turn those cameras on, and then walk complete strangers into the room and have you give readings for them so that I'll know there's no way you had any time to Google anything or have detectives gather information on people. And the woman, her name is Angelina Diana. She immediately said, "Sure, I'll do that." And that's what I did. And at this point, I've done like maybe over 20 sittings with her where I have complete strangers come into the room and she gives these readings that are life changing, where she's getting information that there's just no way that she could know.
That's amazing. It truly is amazing. And so that brings us to the life after death, scenario, because we all want to believe, those that are Christians, I'm a Christian, and we want to believe that there is everlasting life after death. But then in your mind, you're thinking, well, that's not logical because of science,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So
yeah. Well, so then that's exactly what went on in my mind. I was thinking, if I'm finding what I think I'm finding, why hasn't science figured this out yet? I'm just an actor, a bartender, right? I'm not the person who should be investigating one of the most important questions to face humanity, right? There should be much smarter people than me who are looking into this if this is a genuine phenomenon. And at the same time, another part of me was thinking, surely if this is a real thing, one of my science teachers would have told me, right? Right after teaching me about mitosis in biology class, they would have said, and oh yeah, by the way, there's also evidence that some human brains are able to pick up information from dead people. But no science teacher ever taught me that, so it couldn't be that it had ever been studied before, I thought.
Right.
I was very surprised to find out that is absolutely inaccurate. There has been tons of research into mediumship, and not just by any old scientists, some of the brightest scientists that have ever walked the planet, Nobel Prize winners. Mm-hmm. Some of these folks, especially earlier at the end of at the late 1800s, early 1900s, when mediumship really sort of came to the fore, and a lot of people were holding like seances. It was before televisions and radios were in every single house, so people got together and had like parties and would sit in a dark room and have fun seances trying to contact the dead. And before long, things started to happen. Anyway, science got involved. Scientists were intrigued enough by the stories they were hearing to get involved. And for instance, there's a scientist named William James, who is no less than the founder of the psychology department at Harvard University. Brilliant scientist. He's considered to be the one of the founders of psychiatry. He's before Freud, and so he studied a woman named Lenora Piper out of New Hampshire for 20 years, decades. And he came to the very clear conclusion, very clear, that it's unequivocal. She was doing something that science has not yet identified the mechanism for. She was able to get information in a way that through some pathway that we have not yet identified. And then I was even more surprised to find out that modern day studies are going on at the University of Arizona, for instance, the University of Virginia. There's current research happening right now by a wonderful scientist. Her name's Dr. Julie Beischel, and she runs the Windbridge Research Center. And her results are very clear. Very clear. It's pure math. It's statistical analysis. Something genuine sometimes happens with people who are claiming this ability.
Mm-hmm. So in your mind, is there, your research and everything, are there certain groups of people that can be mediums, or how do they have that pathway? What is, like, I know with Janet, it's her spirit guide, Blue Feather is her spirit guide, and that's her path to be able to go. So how
Yeah.
do you do some of these?
Yeah, it gets very complicated, and there are a lot of questions we can't answer, right? So once we accept that paranormal things do happen, right? That's the main question, because again, mainstream science says there is no such thing as anything quote unquote paranormal.
Right.
But they're wrong about that, and I now know that for sure. The last chapter of my book explains something that I experienced sitting beside a New York Times journalist when it happened. She also wrote about it. We have experienced something that has proven to me beyond the shadow of a doubt that the quote unquote paranormal does indeed happen, right? So once we finally get past that question, does it or does it not happen? And we accept that it does, and it does. The question then becomes, what is the mechanism for it, right? So scientists who are currently studying this, who now have no doubt that there is something happening that we haven't yet been able to understand the mechanism of. Is this a human ability that we haven't yet been able to figure out? So your friend who's hearing someone or hearing a voice that she perceives as a separate spirit with a name, White Feather, is that what you said? Or
Blue Feather.
Blue Feather.
Mm-hmm.
Is that actually a separate entity with its own agency that is communicating with her, or is it some subconscious part of her brain that she's not aware is a part of her own brain? These are deep questions that we're not close to getting the answers to, and that's why I wish more scientists would start to pay attention to this, so that we could start to ask those deeper questions. But all of that said, after everything, all of the evidence as a whole, because it's not just mediumship, right? There's near-death experiences, people who die and are resuscitated and have these incredible experiences. Little kids who have memories of previous lives that are later verified. The memories are verified to be accurate, and there's no way this little kid could have known these memories. When you take all of the evidence as a whole, to me, it's very suggestive that of the fact that these are separate entities in some other level of existence that are exhibiting their own agency and maintain their own brains. I think there's probably a mixture of things that go on. I think there probably are human abilities that we haven't yet figured out, and that might account for some of the quote unquote paranormal stuff that we see. But there's also, to me, very strong evidence suggesting that there are people like my dad who are without a body that continue to exist and are sometimes able to communicate in some way or influence the physical world.
That's amazing. It truly is. We're gonna have to take a break because we went over a little bit on the time, but I'm loving this because and I will share a story with you when we come back. But this is very, very interesting, and I know that I'm interested, and I know a lot of people out there are interested in it. So we'll definitely come back to it. But we have our wonderful author here today with us. We're talking about the book Love, Dad, and it's Mike Anthony is here with us today. Now we can find your book on Amazon, right?
That's right, Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com.
Yeah, so we can get your book there. So it's a very interesting book. It's how his father died, and then he told him he wasn't gone, and so it's definitely interesting. And we want to hear a little bit more about the life after death. I think that'd be very important to us because many of us are questioning those kind of things. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. So you guys, you're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I am Cece Shatz, and we'll be right back. everyone. Welcome back. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are on the Author's Corner, Meet the Author. We have a wonderful guest here with us today, Mike Anthony. He has written a wonderful book called Love, Dad, and we're talking about how his father died, and then how his father told him that he wasn't. And this is what the book is about. It's kind of bringing hope and evidence of afterlife connection. And it's also featured in a Netflix series called Surviving Death. And I know I belong to Netflix, so I'm going to try to watch it. Is it out now, Mike?
It is. Yeah. It's a 6-part series about evidence for life after death.
Yeah, so I'll look it up and I'll definitely watch it, because I'm very interested in this this topic, because you think, gosh, you spend years and years here on Earth, right, in this presence of what we're going through, and you tend to wonder, is this it? Is this all that there has? And you've worked so hard, and you've made relationships, and you've done things and touched lives, and is that it? Is it?
Yeah.
Are you done with it? And I wanted to share with you, because the first part of the show, we talked a little bit about the book, your journey on writing the book, how your father touched your life afterwards through a medium, and then how some people, have that ability, and we're not quite sure, we're understanding how they have those things. And you're talking a little bit more about the science part of it and everything. But I will share that when my last son, my youngest son, Harry, when he was a baby, he had this real, and he had a very difficult life when he was a baby. We adopted him, and so he had some challenges that most kids don't have. And so, but he managed to get through those. But was very still, where most babies are, kind of active and thrashing around and all that. He was always like very still and always looking into the distance, like there's something beyond you. And like he would act sometimes if you were holding him, like, and his eyes would go like if there was somebody else in the room, he'd have some other thing like that. And so we started, even my ex-husband and I, we started kind of thinking like, I think he's got a little bit something going on here, because we look at each other like, what's he looking at?
Yeah.
And it was the weirdest thing, is because it was the stillness of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did you ever experience anything like that?
Not in my own. Well, the only memory that I have of something like that. First, I'll just say that that's not unusual. Kids often have these perceptions that a lot of times we're now finding they might have them, and they don't tell us about them. I forget the name of the researcher who did a study about this. He was a Japanese researcher, and he started asking very young children if they had any memories about like where they came from, for instance. And once he started asking them, he found that a very high percentage had answers for him about things. But for instance, when I was young, my sister and I, we must have been, I don't know, maybe 3, in my room, kind of standing up by my window, our heads like barely over the windowsill. And I was saying to her, when I was big, I something. And I can't remember what I said, but I was telling her about what I did when I was big. And then she told me what she did when she was big. And we both remember this. And we remember that we weren't playing a game. This was very serious. And then I have the very clear memory of being confused for a second, because I was like, wait a minute. You're small and then you grow to be big, but I was big, and for a moment I was confused, and then I let it go, and something shiny went by, and I started playing with my shiny ball or whatever. And I think I never thought about it again. It was this very brief thing. And we now find that this happens a lot. Sometimes it'll be one thing that a child says, and then that's it. This was some of the most remarkable research that I ran into that I highly suggest everyone check out. At the University of Virginia, there's a division called the Division of Perceptual Studies. And, the University of Virginia is one of the top public universities in the country, right? This is not like some small time university that's hiring crazy people as their professors and researchers. This is a prime university. And the division is headed up by a guy named Dr. Jim Tucker, who is a brilliant psychiatrist. And the evidence that they've uncovered at the Division of Perceptual Studies at UVA is very clear, very persuasive. It's very, very indicative of some genuine phenomenon going on. In an average case, if we can say that, you'll have a child who's maybe 3 or 4 years old, and they'll be talking very passionately about a previous life. They'll want to go to their other mommy, begging their mom to take them to their other mommy, for instance. And then they'll come up with the name of that mom, the name of their siblings, the name of the dog that they had, right? And in the best of these cases, they end up giving enough information, for instance, a first and a last name and maybe a street that they lived on. And they'll find out that 50 years ago, there was a person by that name on that street. The mother was the name the child gave, and that person had 2 siblings, and they had a dog with that name. So it's way beyond the chance of the statistical odds that it would be by chance are incredibly remote, right? And they have like 3,000 of these cases now that have been quote unquote verified, meaning the child is given enough information to pin down a previous personality. And the evidence is so strong, in fact, that JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, right, which is one of the most respected scientific journals in the world, when JAMA comes out with a new study about heart disease, for instance, or how saturated fat might or might not be linked to heart disease, it's splashed across the headlines, right? It's on the nightly news. But when the book editor for JAMA looked at Dr. Stevenson's research, Dr. Stevenson is the man who started the Division of Perceptual Studies over 50 years ago. When he looked at his research, his conclusion was that reincarnation was the most likely explanation. That's the book editor of JAMA that said that. And yet no one heard about it. Mm-hmm. And the reasons for that are varied and multiple. That's a whole nother topic, why this information is not in the mainstream. Because the evidence is strong enough that it should be in the mainstream. No doubt about it. The stuff that they've uncovered at UVA should be taught. That's how solid that evidence is. So to hear that your son, had these experiences, that it's not unusual that children have stuff like that. And then for whatever reason, they tend to tail off these experiences,
right. Yeah, I used to just kind of think maybe it was his guardian angel, because why he's here today, definitely had to have some help along the way. So so it's
kids have imaginary friends, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're not imaginary. It's very, who knows? Maybe there is something they're actually perceiving there, and then something happens when the brain develops. It seems to start to filter out some of those things for some reason. So,
But Mike, I was thinking as you were talking there, I wonder who we could put the order in for our next life.
Yeah.
Because I have some changes I'd like to have made.
Yeah,
I don't really want to go around the block on some of these things that I've experienced in this lifetime today, but so let's put our new order in.
That's something I've been thinking about. A lot of the kids have something called what they call intermission memories, where they remember where they are in between their last life and this life. And a lot of the kids remember, for instance, like picking their next mommy. They'll say, I picked you, I saw you, and I knew you were going to be a good mom or dad, and I picked you guys. That's something that a lot of these kids say. So maybe we do have some choice in the matter.
That's okay, kids out there, don't pick me. I'm just kidding. No, I love my kids. I'm very, 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 I'm 5 and I'm very, very fortunate.
Wow, great.
They're all great kids. So so they make me look pretty good. But so the thing is like, I know there's often times when I have felt like I've done this before, or I felt like it's like deja vu, right? That you've been here before, you've done certain things before, and a lot of times I'll have like a knowing feeling, like I know, I've had just recently, I had a pretty bad experience, and I knew about it ahead of time. I knew it was coming, so I couldn't prevent the experience from happening, but I was because of the knowing that it was going to happen, it wasn't as painful. So it's like, you kind of realize, okay, this is going down and you can't stop it, but at least you're realizing it. So so it's I think definitely there is something. I have no idea what, and I'm a blonde,
Yeah.
so, you know.
If you, the precognitive stuff like you're talking about, there's also great evidence for. There's a great scientist named Dean Radin. He's got a book called Real Magic, I believe it's called. If you're interested in this topic, the idea of having these senses about things that might be coming, there's real evidence suggesting that we do have precognitive abilities. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely have something, because I was taking care of my father here, and I woke up one night where I had this smell, this it smelled like cat pee, if you can.
Mm.
I don't know why. I just, to my mind, it kept smelling like that. And I smelled my hands. I woke up and I could smell it in the room, smelled it in the hands. I went to the bathroom, washed my hands. I couldn't get that smell off. It was like around me. And finally, it kind of went away. You know, after I was up for a while, it went away. And then later, he had gotten ill and he had some sort of infection. And when he came home, I had to administer this antibiotic into him. And they had put a port in, and I had to do it and everything. And I spilt a little bit of it on my hand, and it was that smell.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, bingo. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I must have somehow, I don't know.
Yeah.
Happened, but so
you're not crazy. There is real hard scientific evidence that the brain is capable of performing some function in with some mechanism we don't understand, but there's evidence for it.
Yeah. So I've been trying to tune in to the lottery ticket.
Yeah, right. That's what everybody wants. Why?
Those numbers. I'm in thinking, okay, if I can tune in to cat pee smell antibiotic, I should be able to get those winning numbers.
Right. And that's a very pertinent question. And that's what the skeptics will always say. If there's a such thing, why aren't all these psychics very rich? And that's a good question. I don't have the answer for it. Maybe there, for some reason, there are some rules to all of this stuff somehow that we again don't understand, and maybe getting the lottery numbers is not part of the equation for some reason.
Yeah, I do believe that. I believe that it's maybe to help, and help others along the way or something like that. It's not really for you to change maybe your whole world like that,
That's my personal sense of it.
There have been, like, I watch an HGTV show that it has the lottery winners, and a few of those that said they truly believe sometime in their life they would win. And so they kept playing because they believed that they were going to win. And so it's like, okay, all right. I don't have that feeling.
There's also the idea that is fairly popular, the idea that our consciousness helps create reality, that we are co-creators of reality. And there's evidence for that too. Even in, quantum physics now is showing us that consciousness seems to have an effect on physical reality. So maybe if belief does affect what ends up manifesting in what we call physical reality. It could be.
Yeah, could very well be. And so who are we to doubt it, right? We're going to go with it. Do you happen to have a copy of your book handy? Can you show it on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that, because I don't have it. I mean, I can show, there you go. So Love Dad. By Mike Anthony. And so y'all, you just go to Amazon.com, books and Barnes and Noble. The book is there. This is very interesting topic. It's certainly one that is touching, and it's something that we all question.
Yeah.
And so thank you for writing this book. Thank you for sharing it. And again, everyone, tune into the Netflix series, Surviving Death. It's featured there, and it talks about the evidence of afterlife connection. So thank you so much. Is there any last words you'd like to share with our audience today?
Just that, I know this has been such a hard year for so many people, and I know, and death has been present in so many lives. My heart goes out to everybody. My love goes out to everybody. And the whole reason I wrote the book is, I'm skeptical. It took a lot of convincing for me to get to the point that I'm at now. And that's what the book is for. People who might be on the fence. to me, there is real solid evidence. And I would not say this stuff. I would not say this if I did not absolutely believe it, given everything I've experienced. There's real evidence that suggests to me that our loved ones do survive the death of their bodies, and that they remain with us and around us in some form, and that love survives. Love survives.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that. And it's very interesting topic, and certainly one that we always ask ourselves. We ask other people, which most people, even the skeptics, are interested. They will listen a little bit too. So it's a very interesting topic. I want to thank you for writing the book, because maybe some wouldn't do it, and so you've taken that step forward to share your journey and share your life, and really make ourselves open a little bit more to what's going on around us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's all my dad. It's all thanks to my dad. He made the whole thing happen.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. You're a blessing. We do appreciate it. And we hope that you'll come back on again when you have some other great stuff happening. Okay.
Anytime. Thanks so much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah, we love it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So again, everyone, the author here today is Mike Anthony. He has a wonderful book called Love, Dad. You can get it on Barnes & Noble. You can get it on Amazon.com. Please go and purchase the book. It's very interesting to think about life after death, right? And so, we hope that you guys enjoyed the show. Just this author here today is one of the main reasons that we think our Author's Corner is so fascinating. Meet the author. What a unique individual this gentleman is. And we're so thankful to have him on the show here today. So again, the author is Mike Anthony. That's Anthony. And you can get his book, Love, Dad, right on barnesandnoble.com and on amazon.com. So we want you guys to do that. So again, you're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are the #1 internet singles talk network, and we are very proud of that. We are so thankful to have you listening to us each week. And this wonderful show is called The Author's Corner, Meet the Author. I am Cece Shatz, the Doyenne of relationship building, and I hope you enjoyed it today as much as I have, because I thought this was a very interesting subject. So again, our website right here, goingsolomedia.com. You can find all of our wonderful shows on there, all of our terrific guests and hosts. And I hope that you'll sign up for our newsletter. I do apologize for the newsletter being a little bit delayed because of, I'm dealing with my family and my my father. So we totally understand how things get in the way, but we'll make sure we get that newsletter to you. It's all free, so you want to sign up for it. So love you guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye for now.